All right, welcome everybody to the Direct Response Podcast. Today we have Cain Smith, a direct response expert. He's going to be our guest. We're going to ask him a bunch of questions. And Cain has some pretty extensive experience in the industry, writing copy and working direct response for Agora, VShred, Grant Cardone, and a lot more. He's going to go through his intro himself. He knows it a lot better than I. But Cain, thank you for coming on. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Fernando. So yeah, I've been a copywriter now in the direct response space for a little over 5 years. I started in 2018 writing content, back when there were content mills. I don't know if they still exist now. I doubt they do because of AI.
I think they use
but
AI.
That's yeah. That's where I got started anyway, writing tiny kind of 300-word articles on a content mill site, and then I got into direct response round about 2020. As you can tell, I'm from the UK, and here in the UK, like, there isn't really much of a direct response scene. So like British people tend to respond to a very different kind of advertising to what you tend to see in the United States. It tends to be very brand driven, a lot of humor, clever ads rather than clear ads and stuff. And I never really kind of gelled with the British copywriting scene. But with all the stuff I was studying, you know, I read all the classic books, you know, Schwartz, Halbert, Hopkins, and all that stuff. And I thought, that's the stuff I want to do, the long form direct response, what I call the American style of advertising. So I started to work with, I guess you would call them like ClickFunnels entrepreneurs. So people who were like coaches, course creators, selling information products, usually through a ClickFunnels funnel. They were the first direct response gigs I picked up. Then I got an in-house job. Like I was fully in-house at an Agora division here in Britain, in London. Learned an absolute ton. Like in the year I was there, I was there for 1 year. I learned more in a year than I had done in like the 3 years previous. And from there, I worked with Grant Cardone on his team for 2 years as his senior copywriter. Still see some of my offers running now on Facebook, which is nice to see. And yeah, like work with a lot of the big boys across quite a few niches. So, you know, high ticket courses, health and supplements, stuff like that. I've worked in all the markets.
Amazing. And were you writing mostly VSLs when you got, you know, higher up in your expertise and your experience?
That's what I graduated to. Initially, it was a lot of email work, especially when I was cutting my teeth. Kind of medium-length sales pages, emails, ads, and then eventually, yeah, I got to the point where I graduated to writing VSLs and kind of putting full offers together. So usually it'd be a case of working with the offer owners to figure out what the offer would be, especially in info, where you can have an input and even create some of the info bonuses yourself, for example, in the offer. And then, yeah, writing the VSL, figuring out all the upsell and downsell flow, and writing full packs, basically. That's eventually what I started doing.
Amazing. So you have a pretty thorough understanding of the whole offer process, right? The ads, the funnel, probably some back end stuff as well.
Yeah. And that was one of the benefits of working with these big companies, because you know, they had really experienced copywriters, copy chiefs, marketers, who were kind of pumping through these campaigns every month. You know, they're just kind of offer machines, they're offer factories. And you would learn from these guys on how to assemble what would go into a good offer, how to structure it, how, you know, what kind of offer would do well in upsell number 1 versus upsell number 2 and all that. So it was a real education on strategy, as well as, you know, kind of the fingers on keyboard,
right,
copywriting stuff.
Right. Amazing. So that actually leads me to something I want to talk about, which is, as you know, most of the audience is brand owners, founders, e-commerce guys, and supplement guys. So I think what would be very helpful for them is to learn a lot more about the offer structuring, and what is exactly what you just described, the strategy behind putting together the offer, the whole flow. So if you can just go in and tell us about that, you know, maybe starting from a top-down view, what are the main things you look for when you're putting together an offer?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, when you're putting together an offer, a lot of people just kind of think about the core product that's being sold on the front. They see that as the offer. And then the upsells are almost like afterthoughts to kind of bump up the AOV. And the way I think of it is, you know, you've got a customer, you've got an avatar, who is struggling with usually like a series of problems, or if they have one main problem, solving that will unlock further problems down the line, because solutions end up creating their own problems of their own. So I would say, take your customer, think of their problem, and then break it into about 3 or 4 parts. You know, you only need to solve one of these little problems and do them sequentially. So for an example, you know, a lot of people might sell, if you're selling a supplement on the front, okay, for gut health, for instance, okay, the most obvious upsell to make would be to sell them more of the same. You know, if someone's bought a 3-month package, they might appreciate an awesome deal on another 3 months that beats, you know, like the 6-month offer they sold previously. So that's like the next logical step. Like you're going to want more of this. Then at that point, if you think of, say, something like someone who's suffering with gut health problems, maybe the core product targets, you know, digestive symptoms. So you've promised like less gas, less bloating. But then you think someone who's got poor gut health, you know, they might be suffering with like brain fog due to, you know, like the gut-brain axis, low energy, you know, the gut affects all these things. So then you would solve that next problem in the cycle. And you'd be like, right, okay, the bleeding neck problem, which is the bloating, the gas, you know, the discomfort, looking, you know, like with having a bloated belly in the mirror and not looking good and feeling paranoid about it. That's the bleeding neck problem you solve on the front. But then the next problems you could solve after would be, oh, and you know, like here's like a supplement for brain function, you know, like a cognitive supplement in the upsell path to address like the brain fog that people with gut health.
So you think of the offer as, you know, not just the offer is almost a separate thing from in which the main problem is just one aspect, right? And then you have secondary problems. You can build products all around that. And then, I mean, I've seen oftentimes the secondary products end up contributing even more to the AOV than the main product, right? Than the hero product.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously a very kind of obvious economic strategy to it as well. Yeah, to kind of increase the AOV. That's the main reason. But the strategy behind kind of which product to place and where in the flow and how to price it and stuff, that's where you have to think of it more as a customer journey, rather than, I've seen some guys who literally tack on upsells like they're cross sells, you know, like what other SKUs have I got lying around, and just kind of lump stuff in. And that, yeah, that's definitely not the way you want to structure an upsell flow. It won't convert very well.
Now, so there's one thing I've noticed. So you've been in info and you've been in supplements, physical products. I've noticed that when it comes to info, the offers are often more complex. So they'll have like multiple different courses or multiple different calls or something in there. Like it's a big bundle. Whereas in physical products or supplements, it's usually very direct, very clear, one main thing that they're selling on the front end. Yeah. Have you seen the same thing? And why do you think that is, that in info, they can go so much deeper in having so many more aspects of the front end offer, whereas it's the opposite when it comes to physical?
You're right. That's true. Yeah. There's a broader variety of products and offers you can make in the info space. I think it's because the problems that an info product solves tends to be less tangible. So like there are lots of different ways of solving those problems because they're less tangible problems. So you can be a lot more creative with how you package the information, you know, whether you're going to do in-person events and retreats, whether it's masterminds, coaching programs, courses, books, monthly newsletter subscriptions. There's loads of stuff you can do. But I tend to find with info, there tends to be quite a logical ladder to that as well. So the stuff that requires like high energy to consume, for example, a book that you might sell as the front end, you can kind of keep ramping it up a notch in the upsell. So someone who's had a book, I don't know, like, first of all, you'd probably bump them an audio version of the book on the order form, but then that person might find consuming a video course on the same material like a lot quicker and easier. So you might upsell them to the course. Then it's like, hey, you know, like maybe you need help implementing all this, and then they get sold into coaching where they kind of get the handheld. And it's sort of, there's bigger and bigger offers that tend to be more higher priced, that involve a higher degree of access and implementation from the coach or the guru who's typically kind of being the face of the offer and selling it.
Right. Yeah, that's a very interesting, that makes a lot of sense because the problem is a lot more general. So you can address it in a million different ways. Whereas with the physical product, it's usually very specific. right? It's like one health problem or one pain problem or something very precise. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and just to kind of round that off, like in physical products, you could do it potentially, like say if you were selling a supplement, you could maybe then sell a super strength version of the supplement with a much higher dosage, which, you know, kind of ramps it up. But you're very limited, yeah, with physical products into solving that same problem in these various ways.
And I think that's why it comes in, as you said, that you have to address some of the secondary problems. That's a much easier way to structure the upsells, right? Rather than more products for the same problem.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So just think of it as a customer journey. You know, there's a certain element of sophistication to it, but if you've done all the research, then you'll know the customer's journey anyway. You'll know what it is.
Absolutely. Some of these guys are not doing their research, Cain. They just want to make their. But that leads me into the next question, is that a lot of ecom founders and supplement guys that I talk to are very talented and skilled when it comes to the operations side, and they've been running ads for years. But I don't know how much you know about the e-commerce industry, but it didn't get super sophisticated when it came to copywriting and direct response until kind of recently, when everyone started using the VSLs on a large scale, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. So now a lot of these guys want to get really good at copywriting, really good at direct response, because they see it's a big leverage point. So I wanted to ask you, based on your experience working with, you know, probably some of the best copywriters in the industry, what did they do to help you, you know, get to the next level? Was it the copy cheat? Like, what was the biggest benefit thing that you experienced that took you to the next level?
Yeah, good question. I would say it was learning about ideas and learning that the idea is king. So there's the saying, isn't there? It was attributed to Abraham Lincoln. Is it, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree and I'll spend, you know, is it 5 hours sharpening my axe? Something like that. Yeah. So that's what I was taught, in the sense that, yeah, you do all your research on the customer, on the product, on the market in general, take a look at competitors and see what they're doing. But then take the time to go slow, like almost kind of go slow to go fast with the idea. You know, how is this idea really grabbing someone by the throat? What are you actually trying to say? Like, map your message out. There needs to be a theme. You know, you've probably heard of the big idea, this golden thread, this one idea that your promotion needs to kind of transmit to the viewer that just, you know, will not let them go. So I was kind of taught to put a lot of time and effort into researching the idea and coming up with the idea and stress testing it. So like at the biggest companies, you know, you might have a very experienced copy chief whose job is just to kind of sift through ideas, and he's saying no to so many ideas because he's got his ear like finely tuned for an idea that he thinks will hit. And you're bouncing off each other. You know, there's typically teams of copywriters who are all sharing ideas, and you're helping each other sharpen up your ideas. Now, obviously, if you're not working as a copywriter doing client work for people, and certainly if you're not working in an in-house team where you can get together and do these kind of things, you know, joining communities where you're all kind of trading scripts and reading through each other's copy, whether you're doing it live or whether you're just posting copy in the group and asking one of the more experienced copywriters to cast an eye over it and drop some comments in. This kind of peer review is really important. And yeah, like going to someone who's been there and done it, and ask them for their opinion on the strength of your idea. Because if the idea is not good, you know, you can come up with a great mechanism and you can kind of dot the I's and cross the T's on all the lines of copy, but it's just not going to stand. It's not going to hit.
Okay, that's actually very valuable. So it's almost like it's top down, right? Like the number one thing is the idea, and then everything flows naturally from that. And I guess the copy is almost like the final level. That's been my experience as well, that the actual wording is the last thing you do once you have all the structure mapped out.
100%, yeah. And AI is taking care of a lot of that anyway. You know, like Claude is great. Like if you have your idea dialed in and you've got all your structure planned out and you've kind of set up a Claude project with loads of swipes and really good resources, it can spit out like a draft that's about 70% done right out the gate, and it sounds really good.
So I was going to go into that next. So, I mean, we all know that AI is just becoming better and better with every new model that comes out. And excuse me. Jesus. So it's getting much better at writing. And I think that in the future, it's a matter of time before it takes over writing copy. But there's still some things that it's struggling to do. And specifically, I think when it comes to ideation. So, I mean, tell me if you agree, but I think that for these founders who are watching and who are, paying close attention to AI, and they're thinking, is it even, what do I do when it comes to the copywriting side? I think that there's a case to be made that you can use AI to write that copy, to write that first draft, and then have just a copy chief. But your main job as the creative strategist, the CMO, that marketing role is to go top down, is to come with the idea. And that's kind of your biggest leverage thing. That's the 80-20 of the VSL, is the big idea. I've had that experience plenty of times, that when the big idea is strong, even pretty mediocre copy can work. But when the big idea is weak and it just doesn't resonate, it doesn't matter how good the copy is, it's not going to convert. So do you think that, how do you see that the role of the leader of the business or the marketing side of the business shifting with AI? Do they go more towards ideas? How's it going to be?
I honestly think I call it like the ideas economy. That's the way so I agree with everything you've said. I think that's definitely the way it's going. And funnily enough, Fernando, like in terms of me kind of getting started in ecom and looking to launch my own brand, it's mainly because I see there's almost like an arbitrage opportunity there, where I think if you're good on the copy side, like you're a good ideas person, you'll be an ideas machine, and you'll be very discerning with the ideas that you choose to pursue. And I think that's a big competitive advantage in ecom, in any industry really, not necessarily just ecom, because sooner or later the guys are all going to be able to use the same tools, and copy will just be kind of punched out with the push of a button. But yeah, you need someone hovering over it who's saying, no, we're not going to write that script because the idea is not good enough. No, we're not going to pursue that offer. It's not the right fit for this market. It's the strategist, isn't it? Someone there to kind of guide the strategy and make the decisions and focus and say no to things and say yes to the right things, and then AI will do all the legwork. The good news is for a lot of ecom guys have so much skin in the game from just like testing so much stuff. These are guys who kind of learn with on the job, with skin in the game. They might not have had the traditional copywriting education or experience of working with bigger companies in-house and stuff, but they just get stuck in, they run the ads, they're learning all the time. So these guys are kind of building up that knowledge and experience and that muscle of knowing what a good idea looks like as well. So they'll be in prime positions to take advantage of it when it does end up this way as well, I think.
Amazing. Yeah, the discernment and pattern recognition, as you said.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you another question now. What are some of your favorite, VSLs or offers that you've seen that you think are like the top of the top, whether you worked on them or not, just that you've seen in the industry that we can learn from?
I mean, I'll pick some kind of obvious guys first. I'm a huge fan of, the Golden Hippo guys and the Gundry stuff. I mean, the production values are very high, which always makes, them look great. But I really appreciate the construction of their VSLs and the craft that goes in. There's, I don't know if it's true. I've heard Craig Clemens still writes some of those, or he has a heavy hand in them.
I've heard the same, yeah.
And he's probably the best in the business. So you can do a hell of a lot worse than watch the Golden Hippo stuff. I think VShred from about 4 or 5 years ago, so the VSLs they were producing were terrific. If you look at like the old Burn and Turmeric VSLs, they're real masterclasses. They followed a different model in recent years where the long form stuff hasn't been as prevalent, but they're VSLs I admire a lot. And going outside of health, again, I started in an info background in BizOp and financial publishing and stuff. So yeah, many of the great copywriters. If you watch anything by Stansbury Research or the MarketWise groups, fantastic. Some of the stuff they're doing is very, very cinematic as well. Which is, again, if we've seen how good VL3 is now, I think this is where VSLs are going to go. Guys in ecom, I think, are going to start producing stuff that's more cinematic because the technology will be there. And if you're looking for like really good you know, for anyone watching this who's interested, go and look at the FinPub guys, but especially Stansbury Research. A lot of what they do is it has this like cinematic quality to it, and you'll rip some good ideas from it, even though it's in a completely different industry.
Amazing. Yeah. Golden Hippo is really something special. I mean, nobody's really been able to compete with that quality of copy and production.
They are the gold standard, you know. So I'm always kind of in the ad library looking at what they're running, just to kind of.
Have you met Craig Clemens?
Never met him. Would love to, but no, never met him.
Did you work for Golden Hippo?
No, I've written affiliate swipes for their offers, but I've never worked on any of their full-length promos or as part of their in-house team. No.
Understood. Okay. So guys, for you watching, that's those are some great options to check out to really study and see this copy in depth. You know, watch the VSL and take the copy, take the transcript, and go through it and map out what tactics are they using. And as Cain said, you know, find what are the big ideas here, because I think that's one of the best ways to break down a VSL is find what's the overarching big idea, what's the big idea of each section, and then because it's like you said, Cain, it's an ideas game. It's all just turning ideas into, you know, consumable media.
That's right. And I think if you really kind of look back through history, it always has been an ideas game. But even more so now when you know, the writing has become so democratized, it's an ideas game more than ever now.
So tell me, what are you working on now? What are your current ventures that you're excited about?
So I'm preparing to launch my first ecom biz.
Nice.
My wife has an ecom store. She sells apparel, so I've been kind of helping her with that. But this is like my first venture in ecom myself. I'm going to be selling into the menopause market, and I still, you know, I'm still a copywriter for hire. This is how I pay the bills, and how I'll be kind of cash flowing the business in its early growth stage is, you know, I work with a lot of what I would call traditional clients, you know, who need VSL funnels and webinar funnels and stuff like that. But all of it combined keeps me really busy. I'm really excited though by ecom. Like I said, it's why I'm here. I'm delighted to see that direct response has kind of bled in recent years. It's the thing that's attracted me to ecom is the fact that, oh, you have direct response skills, like you can kind of arbitrage it in this game and use them to go far. So that's why I'm here.
Well, it's very exciting, and I'm rooting for you to crush it. Hopefully we'll see you in the ads library soon.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all for me. The last question I had is, you know, when it comes to copy, the main thing these ecom guys are using it for is on the ad side, the cold traffic. Not so much, you know, these on-page VSLs, they're not as long, but they're mostly, you know, 5 to 15 minutes, and they're running in feed on Facebook or YouTube. Do you have experience writing copy specifically for ads or for VSL ads, or was it always, you know, getting traffic from email and then bringing them to a VSL funnel, and that's where your focus was?
So I have experience of doing both. The majority of my experience was in that, you know, the latter model of kind of driving traffic from maybe a static ad to an advertorial, then to an on-page long-form VSL, or a lot of warm traffic, you know, emails going out, affiliate swipes and stuff, driving people to a VSL. But in the past year, I've been writing more and more Mini-VSL scripts, and I love like the game of piecing together the mousetrap and trying to figure out what's the best structures. So, you know, if you're writing a Mini-VSL, do you send it to an advertorial, then to a PDP, or do you send it to a quiz? Or like, there's all these different ways of piecing it together. And I still think a lot of guys are working it out. The main difference I would say between writing Mini-VSLs and on-page VSLs is kind of the amount of, I would say, education that goes into the Mini-VSL, where it needs to feel more like a native organic piece of content that someone would see in the Facebook feed, where they feel like they're learning something. And then like an on-page VSL, you're kind of really selling the sizzle and it's constant tease, and there's less teasing in the Mini-VSL, at least at the start, because it has to feel native to the platform. And that was a little bit of a learning curve for me. When I was writing them, I was writing them really like a long form VSL shrunk down into like 8 minutes, and they weren't hitting And that's what I thought, that's what I'm doing wrong. I'm not giving out enough education, content style material right at the start. And when I started doing that, they started working better.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest differences that I experienced also, is that it's not like traditional direct response. There's this nuance to it where it has to be like content. It has to be disarming. You know, you
Yeah,
can't just be using all the tactics and stuff. I tried that as well, and those never really perform.
yeah. So there's a curious mix. It's between almost being organic like at the start, and then after that initial lead, you can kind of pivot then into a more traditional format, at least from what I've seen.
Now, for those who are, you know, just getting into copywriting in a serious way, whether they have a brand or not, or they own an offer or not, what would you recommend are some of the best ways, specifically for this type of copy, for e-commerce, for the VSLs, advertorials? You know, what are some of the best ways they can learn these tactics and these structures and these ideas?
I mean, a lot of the guys from what I know are constantly actively watching VSLs, looking at other people's ads and stuff. So I would say, yeah, like getting out there in the wild and breaking them down, you know, rip the scripts and then go through them kind of section by section and chunk them down and really study them and see how they work. Like that's the best, other than obviously getting direct feedback and training from someone. That's the best thing you can do on your own, is just look at ads that are out there in the wild and then start writing your own. I would suggest, and I don't know how many people would want to do this, don't use Claude, don't use AI, like write them the old fashioned way. So like you kind of know what's going into it and you're really having to think about what's going into it. I'm a big fan of, you get better at writing by writing. You know, there's all kinds of books and courses you can take, and some of them are really good, but nothing beats breaking down ads, writing your own, and developing that like a muscle. If you could do that daily, you know, like a sports person will turn up and do the basic drills, you know, an hour a day, 2 hours a day. I think that's what I write every day, 7 days a week. You just got to keep doing it. And if you're not actually doing it for an active offer, just consider it your training. You know, this is your laps around the pitch. Break down an ad, try and write one yourself for a product that you've chosen with the same structure, and try not to rely on AI at the start. Use AI once you've developed the skill to kind of understand. And I know a lot of people aren't going to want to do that, but I do think long term, it'll give them an advantage.
Absolutely. Those are the people who will succeed, the ones who are willing to do it. And yeah, so don't, you know, the common pitfalls that you pointed out, stay away from over consuming these books and stuff and the AI, because I think that a lot of people will fall into that trap, probably already have, is the overindulgence of these books and courses, and then just using AI based on this theoretical knowledge, and then everything's bombing and nothing's working. I've seen that plenty of times.
Absolutely. I've seen people literally just taking whole PDF books on copywriting, classic books, good books, and you know they think, right, put that inside there, and then like a structured document, like that is the fastest way of doing it. It's a shortcut, but the people who are doing that, like, they're not learning it. Like they haven't read the book that they're uploading into the tool. So I don't recommend that.
So hands-on, get hands-on and get in the ring and practice and put your ads out there and put some money behind them and see what happens.
Definitely, yeah.
How I learned.
Get bruised, get bloody.
100%. Well, Cain, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything you shared. Thank you for, you know, your expertise, giving us these insights. I think it'll be very valuable to a lot of these guys who are not exposed as often to specialists in high-level copywriting. So I appreciate it. Is there anything that you want to share, how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. I don't post on there very much, but the social media platform that I at least was most active on is LinkedIn. You'll find me on there pretty easily. Cain Smith, if you search for me on there. Otherwise, I'm one of these underground guys. I don't really have a flashy website or anything. If people want to get in touch with me, they can email me. It's contact@cainsmithcopywriter.com. So if anyone wants to drop me a line, I'm always chatting away to copywriters who reach out to me there.
Amazing. Incognito copywriter.
Yep. Yeah, quite a few of us, underground, don't do the whole kind of content marketing thing, usually because we're too busy writing copy.
Right.
All
I
right, man.
appreciate your time once again, and hopefully we'll see you around maybe on another episode one day when you have your
Awesome, man. I'd love to. It's been good being on here. Thank you.